Microsoft computer programs have a function called Command Z, and I love Command Z. Command Z is great because really it's an undo button. When I'm writing and I've added a paragraph and after I've written it, I look at it, I go, that is so not what I want. So I just go Command Z and poof, it's gone. No regrets, I don't even miss it. Or if I'm working in a spreadsheet and I have a whole column of numbers or dollars or something like that, and I accidentally, I'm thinking, I don't need that anymore, and I take it out, and then I look and I go, oh, no. Command Z, and it comes back. And wouldn't it be wonderful if life had Command Z so we could just undo some of the things that we said? Some things that maybe are like this. We did something we promised we wouldn't do. We didn't do something we promised we would do. We didn't take the time to do things right. We lost our temper, or we said things without forethought. Yeah. Some people call these mistakes. And when we make a mistake, here's another list of things that we really ought not to do. Have a drink or get something to eat. Oh my God. And cry and beg forgiveness just to make ourselves feel better. So we're really not worried about the other person that we made a mistake with. We just want ourselves to feel better. Convince ourselves that there was nothing wrong with what we did. I was right. Get angry at the person who we hurt because after all it's their fault. Go quiet and act like a victim to the one we hurt because after all it's their fault. Or concoct an internal story about how bad they were, or plain old just lie about it. I never did that. What? What are you talking about? I never. So these are the things that are tempting after we have one of those mistakes, those broken agreements that we have with ourselves or with the universe. And so it's like, what do we do about it? Because I don't know about you, but I don't like living in the throes of drama that this brings up. I don't like living in drama mistake land. And I would rather enter through a portal, a doorway, a welcoming doorway preferably, a welcoming doorway of a different higher consciousness. Einstein says we can't solve problems in the consciousness in which way they were created, so we have to put ourselves in a different consciousness in order to address what's going on right in front of us. Now, one of the easiest ways to make that shift in consciousness, to actually get to the welcoming doorway, is to say this word. Oops. My mother would say, oopsie daisy. And if you want to channel my mother, you can just go right ahead and say, whoopsie daisy. But I like oops because it's short and it's concise. There's a songwriter and comedian who lives in San Francisco, and a number of years ago, I think all the way back in the 80s, he wrote a song called Oops, I Made a Mistake. And it's sweet and it's wonderful and it's perfect because something will be in front of us and well, you know, we're in those throes of drama in mistake land and we can go, oops, and then we can sing. Aren't you excited? As a consciousness shifter. Oops, I made a mistake, but I'm beautiful, I'm beautiful. Hear the words. Oops, I made a mistake. But I'm beautiful, I'm beautiful. Okay, did you do the hand motions too and the hip motions? Oops, I made a mistake. But I'm beautiful, I'm beautiful. Because you know what, it kind of doesn't matter what's going on right there. If we can get to that doorway, if we can get to that welcoming doorway with a shift in consciousness by saying oops or by singing this little ditty, then in that moment, because it doesn't even have to be a long moment, but in that moment, we can remember a profound truth like this. We know that all things work together for good to them that love the Lord. Metaphysically, the word Lord represents law or principle. Our co-founder Charles Fillmore would say, make sure that those law, Lord, principle always are in uppercase because that's the God consciousness. Love, metaphysically, is the energy that emanates from the heart that wants nothing but the best for the object of affection. And that's us. That's you. That's me. So when this energy pulls us back into God consciousness, we can remember that all things are working out for our good. We can remember that all things work together for our good. Abraham says it just a little bit differently. Abraham Hicks says, things are always working out for me. Together, things are always working out for me. Now, if you don't start getting those little tingles and those little bubbles, you can play with the phrase. Just like play with your food, play with the phrase. Things are always working out for my good. Together? Things are always working out for my good. 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 So it doesn't address the mistake. It doesn't talk about the spiritual healing that needs to go on to come in to fully immerse yourself in the God consciousness, but it gets us to the doorway. So, oops, I made a mistake, but I'm beautiful, I'm beautiful. Okay, so that's one way to get to the doorway. Things are always working out for me is another way to get to the doorway. There are a lot of good things about mistakes. Really, a lot of good things about mistakes. Mistakes help us discover who we truly are. When we put ourselves out there and we realize, oh boy, this isn't where I thought I was going. Oops, this isn't where I thought I was going. We learn about ourselves. We learn what we can do and what we can't do. What we ought to do and what we really ought not to do. There's a story about these two gentlemen who worked for a company called Handy Dan Hardware in California. And they were very creative, innovative thinkers. They were in the upper management, and Handy Dan got bought out by a bigger company. Now, the CEO of the bigger company was notorious for letting people go, but these two guys were like, but not us. Yeah, their mistake really was arrogance. Not us, because we are who we are, and we're creative, and we're innovative. And Handy Dan is successful because of who we are. So we would never get fired. So you know what happened. They got fired. And one of the guys tells the story that he didn't shave because his wife wouldn't let him have a razor. They were just in that drama mistake land, stewing and stewing. But here's the phrase. Here was the consciousness shifter. I can't wait to see what good is going to come out of this. I can't wait to see what good is going to come out of this. I can't wait to see what good is going to come out of this. So these two guys, after they wallow for a while, and they have the full experience of the wallow, they go to New York, they get some financing, they reorganize in Atlanta, Georgia, and they start their own discount hardware store that has become Home Depot. Over 2,000 stores. Because they made a mistake. Because they made a mistake. I can't wait to see what good is going to come out of this. Say it with me, please. I can't wait to see what good is going to come out of this. But mistakes teach us valuable life lessons. Mark Twain was the first person recorded saying this that I know of. There are no mistakes in life, only lessons to be learned. Richard Bach reiterated it, and Jonathan Livingston Seagull and Robin Sharma has this whole program of how there are no mistakes. There are only rich learning opportunities. And our job is to get to that doorway so that we can see that it's an opportunity. So that we can see that something good can come out of this. That actually everything that's happened is not a mistake. It's the universe conspiring for our good. This gentleman is Dr. Alexander Fleming. And he had all these experiments. He was trying to find out something that would kill bacteria. And he looked at this one petri dish and he was like, and he was getting ready to throw it away. And then he went, oh, he took a closer look. He said, this isn't a mistake. This is mold that's growing, that's killing the bacteria. And what he was able to isolate was the substance we call penicillin. It was a mistake. He was just about ready to toss it out. At the last minute, he recognized it for the opportunity that it was. Now, a lot of you might know this story. These are Post-it notes. There was an employee at 3M, and he was trying to create an even stickier substance. And what he accidentally, mistakenly created was a lighter, stickier substance. And he set it aside. But then he found that for his paper bookmarks at church, for his hymnal, if he just put a little bit of that lighter, sticky stuff on it, then the bookmarks in his hymnals didn't move until he wanted them to for the next hymns, for the next week. And eventually 3M was like, this is brilliant. You thought it was a mistake. It's brilliant. I think it's brilliant. Look at how brilliantly we use it on our Intentional Acts of Kindness board. It was a mistake. They became an opportunity. This box is because an engineer at Raytheon was working with radar contraptions and he attached a vacuum tube to it, and then he noticed that the candy bar in his pocket was melting. He said, well, this isn't good. This is a mistake. And then he said, but it might be good for something else. And so he brought some popcorn to work and he stuck it inside and it popped. And a lot of households today have microwave ovens. Thank you for that mistake. This is an inkjet printer. A guy at Canon one morning was ironing his shirt before he went to work, and he put the hot iron down on his pen, and I'm sure he ruined his shirt, maybe even the ironing board, but what happened was the heat caused the ink to shoot out of his pen. And that's how inkjet printers were invented, because of a mistake. Isn't that clever? Aren't we grateful? I'll tell you what I'm grateful for. Two things right here: fireworks and potato chips. A Chinese cook had a bamboo cup, had stuck some ingredients in, 2,000 years ago, mind you, stuck some ingredients in there, and all of a sudden when it got hot enough, it ignited and fireworks came out. Oh, thank you, God, for that mistake. And the other one I want to say thank you, God, for is potato chips, because I don't understand how it could have possibly ever been a mistake. I love potato chips, and that was created in an opportunity by a chef in New York. Yum. Yum. So mistakes help us let go of fear. And really, truly, metaphysically, spiritually, the only mistake that we can ever make is to not make a mistake, is to not take action. Unity's fifth principle is action. We can know our oneness with God. We can understand that we are divinely created in the image and likeness of God. We can co-create with God with wonderful ideas that we get in prayer and meditation. But that doesn't matter unless we take action. We're never going to manifest unless we take action. Unless we take action. Unity writer Eric Butterworth says this: there is a creative intention working in you. It is a force that transcends mistakes and wrong choices and makes all things work for good. You cannot really make a wrong choice, a bad decision. Any step you take will lead eventually to your good, because a negative experience encountered will produce the challenge in which to outgrow the kind of consciousness from which the choice was made, leading to a higher consciousness from which more constructive steps will be taken. So a wrong choice is a right choice at that particular time. And that may be the very inspiration for you to say, yeah, I'm not afraid. I'm just gonna go for it. I'm just gonna go for it. The next one, there we go. Mistakes teach us how to live without regrets. Art Markman, the University of Texas professor that was with us about 10 days ago, talked about how he had compiled all this research about regrets, and how when we're young, our regrets are mostly about things we did. They're about Going out to drink the night before a big test, or waiting till the last minute to write that paper, or in my case, going out on a sympathy date because I felt so sorry for the guy. I have regrets. But as adults, as more mature adults, the things that we regret most are the things that we didn't do. Like, I didn't take that job opportunity, or I had an opportunity to go to Paris, but I didn't go to Paris. Sherry Shea, who was with us last week from Connecticut, writes in her book how she regrets not going to her grandmother's funeral. She was young, she was busy. She didn't even realize how important it would be to her to get that closure until she was older. So she regretted, and we regret many things that we don't do. But of course, there's a consciousness shifter for that. There is a consciousness shifter for that, to do it anyway. Mother Teresa, on the wall of her home in India, had a poem that was actually much longer than this. These are just a few lines, and I want you to read it with me, please, as a consciousness shifter. People are often unreasonable, irrational, and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you are kind, people may accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. If you find serenity and happiness, some may be jealous. Be happy anyway. The good you do today will often be forgotten. Do good anyway. So do good anyway. Do it anyway is a wonderful consciousness shifter, a wonderful way to get to that welcoming door of the higher consciousness. The last one was taught to me by one of my mentors, Katie Hendricks, and it goes like this. No mistakes. No mistakes. If you think about it, this is a very holy and sacred pose. We're really saying, any mistakes I have made, I forgive myself. Any mistakes I think you have made, I forgive you. The perfection in me salutes the perfection in you. So let's try this together. No mistakes. How does that feel? Pretty holy, huh? No mistakes. Because this actually leads us to that doorway that we want to be in, of that God-centered consciousness. No mistakes. Okay, so we've gone through 5 of them. And I want to have a recap before we go into meditation, because, I don't want you to forget anything that could be used for your higher good. Number 1, together. Oops, I made a mistake, but I'm beautiful, I'm beautiful. Okay, number 2, things are always working out for me. Number 3, I can't wait to see what good is going to come out of this. Number 4, do good anyway. And no mistakes. Now, if these don't work for you, I have one that I keep in my hip pocket for emergencies. And you kind of have to go like this. And then you have to go like this. And say, I'm so sexy. It's surefire. But I'm telling you, oops, I made a mistake is something you can usually use with most people. Do good anyway, you can use with most people. This one is really only for people who already know you and understand you. I'm so sexy. I'm so sexy. So let's go into this time of meditation with a joy in our heart, a joy of knowing that we can, even for a moment, and very quickly come to the doorway of that God consciousness that's going to let us discover more about ourselves, that's going to allow us to take more risk, that's going to invite us to be in that emergent, bigger version of ourselves. to remind ourselves that we're beautiful and powerful, and that we let go of our past and celebrate who we've become.